Your report in the Kings Beat, subscribe today at thekingsbeat.com. I really got the ball rolling on the Mike Brown contract discussion. Adrian Wojnarowski on Friday reported, quote, after engaging in contract extension discussions, the Sacramento Kings and coach Mike Brown have tabled talks. There remains a gulf on a potential deal for Brown, who has one guaranteed season left on his contract. Mark Stein also reported, along the lines backing up what you reported on Friday, it appears that the combination of Brown's, this is from Mark Stein, it appears that the combination of Brown's desire for a significant salary bump and the Kings' postseason disappointments of the past 2 springs have given his bosses pause. Yikes, man.
Yeah.
I don't.
This is tough. Like, look, again, negotiating isn't a great negotiating in the press.
Sure.
Isn't a great thing. And like, this has been brewing. It's been coming to a head for a little while from what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just now seeing it bleed out where, initially you kind of understood what Mike was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Amick and Slater wrote the number as like 10 to 12 million. We saw that's what they were hoping to negotiate around.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it from Jake Fisher last week, a week and a half ago, that, they were hoping to have a contract around the, 8-figure number, which again, whether that's 10 or 11 million, whatever it might be. But again, those were just what the parameters of negotiations were expected to be around. I don't think that that's where the Sacramento Kings plan on having those discussions be around. And maybe they've come up a little bit from their previous offers, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe there's some momentum as far as the dollar amount. But I also think that there's, I don't think the two sides are on the same page when it comes to years as well. And so the Kings are a franchise that multiple times during the time I've covered the team have been paying, 2, 3 head coaches at one time, because they've fired so many from the previous years that had 4-year contracts or 5-year contracts, or, still had 2 years remaining on their deal when they got let go. And so you still have to keep paying those contracts.
No doubt.
And then you hire a new coach, and now you got 2 contracts that you're paying. And then you pay another coach. You can get up, it can get a little ugly. But at this point, look, I like, ownership wasn't super happy about the way the season ended. And that's in general. That wasn't just aimed at Mike. That was in general. Like, they're not super happy that they didn't get a playoff run, that they didn't grow from the previous year, that they didn't get to sell playoff tickets, and all that stuff, like in the way that they would have liked to. And so, like, look, this is going to be a situation that I'm not sure, like, there isn't like some super positive, like, this is heading the right direction from everything that I'm hearing. And I don't know if it gets done or not. Like, and then again, someone could wake up today and say, you know what, let's just do this thing. Let's just get it over with. Because like it's part of doing business in the NBA. And I know there's a lot of conversation out there about how much the franchise has raised in value over the last few years. We had some people, in the chat yesterday when we had the Kings Beat podcast, who, pointed out that the Kings franchise valuation since making the playoffs has jumped like over $3 billion. And it's jumped up a ton. And so, like, the positive momentum that Mike Brown has something to do with that. Also, TV contracts and everything else have something to do with that. But also, just like, there's a reality that has to be in place here, that if it's not Mike Brown, then who? And if it's not $8 to $12 million a year, then what are you doing? Because that's the new going rate for head coaches. And like, at some point, whether it's Mike or it's someone else, that's what you're going to be paying. And the guys, again, we can keep saying this, but I don't think people in the back are hearing it. Like, this team has been over 500 10 times in their 39 years in Sacramento. 8 of those are Rick Adelman. 2 of those are Mike Brown. Straight up, he ran an 18-game improvement over the previous year in his first year coaching the team. He took a 2-game step back in year 2, but still ran 46 wins. I mean, this is a team that should be on the rise. It has a positive vibe going about it, that has a culture that's building, and a lot of that is the Mike Brown culture. And I'm confused why that's not being embraced as much as it is, hey, X's and O's, or a couple of wins here, a couple of wins there, and this thing could have totally looked different this year.
Yeah, man. That's my problem with this. Is it's not about the dollars. It's not about the years. It's that the Kings at all would sit here and look at this because uh, uh, here's how I read it from the Kings' perspective. Everything you just said about, well, if you give a guy a 4-year contract and you fire him in year 2 of that deal, you owe him X amount of dollars over the next 2 years because you have to pay him out. You have to pay out that contract, which to me says the Kings are concerned about the direction the team is going or the direction they went this year, whatever it is. And instead of paying Mike Brown up front and saying, you are building a program, here is the going rate for an NBA head coach. Is a really easy comp with Mike Budenholzer and what he just got. What do you get, 10 a year?
He got a 5-year 50, 10 a year.
Right. So 5 and 50. Okay. You don't want to give him 10 because Mike Budenholzer has a title. So you want to make it 9 or whatever it is. I don't care. Like I said, the problem for me is the commitment, because this basically says the Kings are saying, we don't want to pay the going rate for a head coach. And if I'm wrong on this, please let me know. I'm viewing this from a space that you're not. The Kings don't want to pay a head coach because if they miss the playoffs next year, they don't want to move forward with Mike Brown. Or if they don't make the growth that they think they should be making, then they don't want to move forward with that coach, which is why they don't want to give him a sizable contract, because they don't trust him enough to stick around for the length of that contract.
Yeah, I would say that as much as it is about the dollar for year 1 or year 2, it's the length of the contract that is always going to be in question.
Which is asinine to me.
Yeah.
They're not, that to me says their concern and their priority is not building a program, is not having continuity, and is not saying, great, here is this. We have given Mike Brown and Monty McNair this roster, and let's see where this thing goes over the next 4 to 5 years. I guess if you include the last year, 6 to 7 years, and let's see what this can grow into. It's, I need success now.
Yes.
And if I don't have it now, then we'll find somebody else. And that in itself creates a whole bunch of other problems with players who signed up to play here under Mike Brown, and with players like Malik Monk, who may or may not be signing up to play here for Mike Brown.
Yes.
And that's, like I said, the dollars don't even necessarily matter. It's the unwillingness to commit to a coach who has had success. Like, what are you doing? Why is it here?
Yeah. It's the inability to commit to the plan. Like, you chose a path.
Yes.
Right? You chose a path.
They did everything right to this point.
Yeah. And look, there could come a point. I've said this before. There could come a point where Mike Brown can't get you over the hump, where he's a coach that you think, okay, like, let's just say the Kings make it to the Western Conference Finals once or twice, but you can't get over the hump. And you say, okay, I might need a coach that can get us over the hump. And I don't even know what that coach would look like, to be honest with you, but there might be some coach out there that you think, okay, this guy might be the guy who has a couple of championship rings and can push us over the top in the right situation. We just aren't there yet. We're not even close to that. Like, you're trying to build a program. And that has to be from top down. Like, there has to be an identity of what that program looks like, a way that you're developing players, a way that you're bringing in players for off season, the way that you're building your training camp roster, the way you're building everything. It has to be a program, a plan that's in place to have everybody moving in the right direction. And I don't know that we're quite there yet. I think that there's an idea of what a program looks like from a couple of sides. And then, this isn't just a coach and a general manager. There's also ownership involved. And so there's all of these different avenues, and they all have to be on the same page for the synergy has to work for this thing to move forward. And as of right now, I don't know how close we are to finding that synergy. And I think it's a shame.
Me too. My concern when you say, as we talk about this, and we'll continue talking about this kind of throughout today's show, but I know Vivek comes from Golden State, and I know that there have been so many things where he's tried to kind of replicate what they did in Golden State. And my biggest fear with this is that he looks at Mike Brown as Mark Jackson in this situation, where the sooner they get out from under this coach, the sooner they can really take off.
Yeah.
And that, again, maybe this is a negotiation tactic, and maybe cooler heads will prevail in August, or they get together at Summer League and they hash this thing out, and Mike Brown's got a 4-year deal by the time the season starts. But there are just so many things that have led up to this point that make me really, really wary of being optimistic that that's going to happen.
I think that that's realistically the problem.
Yeah.
It's the history here. And like, look, you can compare yourself to the Warriors all you want. If you're willing to pay that tax bill and put that type of talent on the court, then you can start worrying about whether your head coach is the problem or not.
That's it.
But until you do that, which hasn't happened yet,
Mhm.
I don't think you got the right man for the job right now.